This is lesson 106 in Saxon Algebra 1/2, second edition book. This lesson is going to cover two related items. One is roots of negative numbers, and the second is negative exponents. All right, let's start with roots of negative numbers. We know that every positive number has a positive square root, like 2 times 2 is 4, and a negative square root, because negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. When we write the square root of 4, what we're indicating is that the positive square root of 4 is 2. When we write negative square root of 4, we indicate the negative square root of 4, which is negative 2. This is very important. I want you to listen. Negative numbers do not have positive square roots. Negative numbers do not have positive square roots, or fourth roots, or sixth roots, or eighth roots, or etc. Because when you multiply an even number, the product of an even number or positive numbers, it is always a positive number. However, negative numbers do have odd negative roots, because negative 2 3 times would be negative 8, and negative 3 3 times would be negative 27. So we can say the cubed root of negative 8 is negative 2, or the cubed root of negative 27 is negative 3. So, for example, it says find the cubed root of negative 8. Well, we know from the last, what we just did, that number is going to be negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, but then a third time, which is an odd number, is going to make that a negative 8. The same thing in example 2, because this is an odd number right here, and that's the key, is having that odd number over your square root sign. The fifth root of negative 32 is a negative number, because 5 is an odd number of times to multiply. So negative 2 to the fifth power to the third power was negative 8. Then to the fourth would be positive 16. But then to the fifth would be negative 32. The second part of this lesson is on negative exponents, and this sometimes is difficult for people to understand at first. You'll learn to get the hang of it, and you're going to practice it some more in the next book. But for now, let's just say that you remember when you have a negative exponent, in order to make it positive, you're going to need to use its reciprocal. Okay? So, for instance, 1 over 4 to the negative second not to the negative second, to the positive second. 1 over 4 squared. The reverse of that, or the reciprocal of that, is 4 to the negative second over 1. So when you move this exponent up or down, it's going to change the sign of it. Alright? So in the same token here, when I move this up, it's going to become a positive 2. So we'll have 4 squared. So let's evaluate 1 over 4 to the negative second. Well, to make that negative 2 a positive, I'm going to need to make it 4 squared over 1, which is 4 squared times 4 squared, which equals 16. Alright, in this one, 1 over negative 2, and that negative is protected, to the negative 4th. When I flip that and move this to the top, when I move this to the top up here, it becomes, the negative 2 is protected, so it stays negative 2, but this negative exponent is going to change to a positive exponent. So what I really have is negative 2 4 times, which is equal to positive 16. In this case, I have I have the negative right here, but then I have on the bottom of the fraction negative 3 to the negative second. I'm going to use the reciprocal of that, which would be negative 3 to the positive second, because when it moves up or down, the sign changes. What I'm going to have is negative, and then I'm going to square the negative 3, which would give me a positive 9, but then this negative sign is going to come right back and attach because it was not protected. Okay, it was on the outside, so it's automatically going to attach. Okay, so let's do our practice problems. So, in A and B, we're dealing with the first part of our lesson, roots of negative numbers. So this, again, we can see this is an odd number. So we can have a negative number. And we know, or you should know, you should have memorized by now, that the cubed root of 27 is 3. So the cubed root of negative 27 is negative 3. Alright, the cubed root of negative 343. You may have to try a couple of times different numbers. We do know that it's going to be a negative something times negative something, which would be positive, then times another negative, which would equal 343. This equals negative 27. This is going to have to equal negative 343. Well, we know it can't be 5. We can try 6. 6 times 6 is 36, and 36 times 6 is going to be 216. That's too small, so let's try 7. 7 times 7 is 49, and 49 times 7, 9 times 7 is 63. 28 plus 6 is 343. So there I have it. My answer is negative 7. Negative 7 is the cubed root of negative 343. Alright, these two practice problems are going to be practicing negative exponents. Here I have 5 to the negative second. The reciprocal of that, to make this negative 2 become a positive 2 exponent, I'm going to have to say 1 over 5 to the positive second, which would equal 1 over 25, right? Here, I have this 5 to the negative second on the bottom of a fraction. The reciprocal of that is going to be bringing it up to the top, which would be 5 squared, or 5 squared over 1. Either way, it's going to equal positive 25. This is something you're going to have to practice a while before you get it. I'll be happy to answer your questions, so don't get upset about it if you don't get it right, off the bat. You'll get it after you've practiced it a while, and we're going to practice it quite a bit. Alright, I'll see you back next time for lesson 107.